2018, I had a Kundalini rising experience where my whole body exploded into white light. It was pure ecstatic bliss, and in a split second, everything in my body healed. I had Hashimoto's disease, and I also had a 2-year shoulder injury where I could barely use my right arm. In this video, I'm going to share that night with you. I'm going to share what I was doing to lead up to that experience, and then how it's affected me since. Hi, my name is Dr. Kat Lewis, and I use the Vedic science of consciousness and the principles of lifestyle medicine in order to help spiritually minded people achieve higher states of mental, emotional, and physical health, knowing that the health of the nervous system and the physical body are essential for achieving these higher states of consciousness. Essentially, my purpose in sharing the information that I do is to help you understand who you really are, because we are incredible beings. We are light. Everything in the universe is made out of light, and I was able to see it that night. I'll explain. What I tell people is the only difference between a master, like someone like Jesus and Buddha, and us, is that they paid attention. When you start paying attention, and not only in the outside world, but also in the inside world, then you start to actually see what this reality is and who we truly are. There's actually a process of awakening to the truth of reality. We are not the physical bodies, we are bodies of consciousness, and everything you see outside of you is actually occurring inside of you. So it was December 2018. I just come back home to California from Montana, spending the holidays with my family there. It was about 9-10 o'clock at night, and I was just going to lay down next to my daughter because she wasn't feeling good. And so I brought my book, and as I went to sit down, all of a sudden I felt very weightless. And because I'd never felt anything like this before, it was very strange. And so I was going to lay down, and when I noticed it, I sat back up, and I could see that everything in the room was kind of moving and shifting. Even the empty space had some texture to it, and everything seemed to be like light suspended in space. It was like when you wake up from a dream slowly and you can see that it's starting to disintegrate. That's what everything in the room looked like. It looked like light suspended in space. You can remember when you were a kid, if you went to the movie theater and you looked up, you could see that the projector light, as it was shining the image that's on the film strip onto the screen, if you looked up, you could see the light suspended in space. And you had the image of the film strip suspended in space above you. So that's what everything in my daughter's room, the material objects in my daughter's room, the walls, even the space, look like lights, like kind of hanging out in space, suspended in space. And I felt weightless. My body, I felt like I was one with the space around me. There was no difference between this empty space and my physical body. I could see it, but it felt absolutely at one with the space. It was like I was the dream. I was the room and everything in it. I was one with it. I later discovered what happened there. Hopefully I can get to all of this in this video. Because my head felt so weightless, the whole body felt weightless, but I noticed it more in the head area because that's where our human consciousness is centered. I thought maybe I'm having a stroke. And because my daughter was right next to me, I didn't want to pass out in front of her and scare her. So I went down the hall where my boyfriend was at the time. When I opened the door, I told him, maybe you should call 911 because I think I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to describe it, but maybe you should call 911. And he looked at me, and he had done a lot of energy healing. So he looked at me and he zeroed in on me and he said, I will if you want me to. So we sat on the edge of the bed. I was holding his hand, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And I said, I don't have the words to describe what's happening. I felt absolutely weightless. And then I started feeling this rising up sensation. I felt like I was leaving my body. In fact, when I was in the room, when I stood up, that's how it felt. It felt like I was waking up from a dream. Just like when you wake up from a dream slowly and it starts to disintegrate, that's exactly, it felt like the room that I was in, the dream that I was in, my daughter's room, I was coming out of it. I was waking up. And for some reason, I knew I was going to be awake on the other side. So as I'm sitting there holding his hand, I kept feeling like I was rising up out of my physical body. And then I told him again, maybe you should call 911. And as we're sitting there, then my heart starts beating really fast, like bzzz, tachycardia. And I thought, oh my God, this is a stroke. And I told him, I said, the heart's beating fast. And so he put his hand over my heart. He came to the side of me, put his hand over my heart, one over my head, and he'd done a lot of energy healing. I didn't know what he was doing, but I just sat there and I looked up at God, and I just said, I'm not going. I said, I'm staying. I'm staying. I'm not going. And I just kept saying, I'm staying. I'm staying. I must have said I'm staying 1,000 times that night because I was determined to stay in my body. So a little while later, I started to feel like I had to throw up. So now I'm really worried that this is a stroke. So I told him, I said, I have to throw up. And so all of this at this point was sounding like the night my mom died. And she did have a stroke. First she said she couldn't see straight. Then she had to throw up. And after she threw up, she wasn't responding anymore, and she died. She went into a coma that night, and then she died 2 weeks later. At this point, I'm worried that I'm not going to be here anymore. And I couldn't believe it because I was only 49 years old. So long story short, I throw up, and then I was still here after I threw up, and I was glad. I was still responding. I was still coherent. And so we walked out of the bathroom. We're walking into the living room, and all of a sudden I felt this rush of like liquid electric energy shoot out from my center, and then everything just felt like white light. Like it was magnificent. My arms were flying all over the place. I was jumping up and down. My legs were going right in front of me. It was like if you took a Raggedy Ann doll and just went like that with her. There's no resistance. That's how it felt. You can't have resistance when you are light. And the body healed instantaneously because no disease can exist in light. I could move my arms all the way back. They could touch behind me. My legs could come up. If I felt like pure ecstatic bliss. I was jumping up and down and just yelling and just saying, "Thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God," because I thought, one moment I thought I was dying. The next moment, I feel like ecstatic bliss. I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And I was thanking God, and I was like, "Oh my God, is this how we're supposed to feel?" And I was jumping up and down. It was amazing. It was pure bliss. If you could use bliss in your life, type bliss in the comments. Then I could take in enormous amounts of air. I could inhale and I could just keep going on and on and on and on for minutes long. It felt like the air was just going right through me. And I could feel, as I was inhaling, I could feel the air, the life force energy in the air. And I could feel it go all the way down my body into my toes. It felt clean and pristine. It was magnificent. I never felt, when I take a breath now, I don't feel it quite like that, but I can move into a state where it feels similar, but not quite like that night. The rest of that night, my brain was just buzzing. It felt like the energy was going from front to back, and it was like bzzz. But I knew that the energy had its own intelligence, and I knew that it knew what to do. And so I just allowed it. I didn't stress. I just relaxed. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night because of that energy just moving like that back and forth. It was pretty intense. Now, the days after that, I felt very weightless. And I could feel energy everywhere. This empty space, I could feel energy moving. I used to tell my friends that it's like I'm in an ocean, but there's no water, but I feel waves of energy. I could feel that in myself too, especially when I was saying things that were true. It's like I was getting reinforcement, or I was getting confirmation by my higher self when I would say things that were really true. So the universe became alive to me after that. I could feel that trees breathe. When I'd walk, it felt like the ground was like I was on a dock on the water. Everything was alive and breathing. But no one could explain that to me. Nobody. No one could help me understand that. I had to figure it out on my own. So I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to have to break this up into another video. If you like this content, please like, share, so others can benefit, and follow me for more information.